The farmer attacks a disabled beggar and is shocked to discover who her father is. The winter streets of New York buzzed with life, but Victor Harrison felt as numb as the frost on his designer shoes. With every step, he felt the weight of the world on his shoulders. He was a millionaire, sure, but standing among the glittering skyscrapers offered no comfort. The glamorous parties and hollow smiles of high society wrapped around him like a suffocating shroud. People laughed and toasted to fleeting moments, and yet Victor felt trapped, ensnared in a life filled with superficiality. As he strode past the bustling crowds, a jarring sound broke through the hum of the city. A soft voice whispered nearby, repeating the same haunting words. "My dad will come back." Victor turned to see a frail girl sitting on the sidewalk, her thin frame shivering against the cold. Sofia was a sight that struck him like a thunderclap. Her eyes, wide with hope, glossed over with unyielding tears. "Look around! You're alone!" The words flew from his mouth like arrows, sharp and unforgiving. Her small face crumpled, and for a split second he felt a flicker of regret. But the disgust at his own weakness stood strong. Her voice trembled. "He promised he would—" "You're a fool to believe in promises," he spat, the ice in his tone cutting through the winter air. Something inside him snapped, a surge of prolonged anger he didn't know he possessed. Suddenly, he was towering over her, all power and wealth, yet feeling utterly hollow. The surrounding pedestrians halted, eyes wide, murmurs cascading through the crowd, shock etched on their faces. Then, as if in slow motion, Sofia's fragile hand reached out. "But he'll return," she breathed, her eyes unwavering. A lump formed in Victor's throat, blocking the words that needed to escape. Something primal stirred within him. His hand shot out in an impulsive reaction. The crowd gasped as he pushed her. She tumbled back, her picture fluttering from her grip into the snow. Victor stepped back, breathless, horror washing over him. The shame felt like icy fingers wrapping around his heart, squeezing tight. The echoes of her shattered hope pierced through his carefully constructed walls. Determined to extinguish the guilt ignited by that moment, Victor began to investigate. Memories of Helen, a love he lost long ago, began to emerge from the corners of his mind. He stumbled upon a truth he never expected. "She's my daughter?" The words danced on his tongue, bitter yet illuminating. Each heartbeat thrummed with confusion, and guilt stabbed at his conscience. Meanwhile, Sofia waited in the shadows, with dreams of meeting the father she longed for, unaware of the crumbling facade Victor wore. Days later, news broke. Helen had filed a lawsuit, claiming him a dange. A courtroom clamour filled the air. Victor felt like it was all slipping away. But as Sofia stood to defend him, a glimmer of hope sparked within. Those shadows loomed larger than ever. Just as they began to bridge the gap, an unexpected complication threatened to sever everything, leaving Victor questioning if redemption was still within reach, and if Sofia could believe in him once more. Hey, before we continue with this incredible story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without notice. Just give that red button down below a quick check to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content coming your way. And while you're at it, leave a powerful like that helps me a lot with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, what city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all. Sofia's voice still rang in his ears, a beacon in the dark. Could it really be true? He had been so consumed by his own pain that he hadn't seen the truth clearly. Will you prove to the court that you can protect her? Helen had asked, her gaze hard, her tone biting. Victor could only nod. A lump lodged in his throat. He couldn't lose her. Not again! Today was the day they'd both speak. Victor felt a thin thread of excitement, tangled with fear. What if Sofia declared her love for him? What if she told them all he was a good man, a redeemed man? But underneath the anticipation lurked a churning dread, the fear of his past creeping up, the shadows that often left him sleepless at night. As he rose to take the stand, the judges' faces blended into a blur. He cleared his throat, the tension winding tighter in his chest. "Mr. Harrison, please share your relationship with Sofia," the judge instructed, voice even and firm. Victor blinked. "She's my daughter, and I want to be part of her life." From the corner of his eye, he spotted Sofia. She sat quietly, clutching the same picture of her father. Hope was etched on her face, but it felt fragile, like glass. He needed to make this work. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed through the courtroom, jolting everyone. The loud crash of the door being flung open reverberated as a woman burst in, her face wild and frantic, her clothes tattered, hair dishevelled. Victor's heart sank as he recognized her. "Victor, stop!" she shouted. Tears streamed down her cheeks. "You don't understand. Don't let them take her." The room froze. Everyone turned, disbelief palpable. "Margaret?" Victor gasped, recognition dawning along with dread. She had been a ghost from his past, a name associated with darkness. "What are you doing here?" he stammered, confusion and fear swirling in tandem. "I'm here to protect her!" she screamed, pointing a shaky finger towards Sofia. "She's not who you think she is. She's not your daughter." Gasps filled the court. Victor's stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" His voice faltered. "Her real father is someone else." Margaret's voice sliced the heavy air like a knife. "He's dangerous, Victor. You don't know—" "Enough!" the judge commanded, slamming a gavel against the desk. "This is a court, not a circus." But the courtroom had transformed into a whirlwind of chaos. Whispers erupted. Rumors took form. Sofia's eyes flickered, clouded with confusion. "What do you mean?" "Mum said my dad was—" she began, but Margaret interrupted. "Your mum lied. The real father is—" But before she could finish, her eyes rolled back, and she collapsed. Silence fell like a curtain. Panic erupted. Sofia screamed, rushing forward. Victor's heartbeat thundered in his ears. Everything he believed was unraveling. Suddenly, a rush of urgency consumed him. He needed to get to Sofia, protect her from the swirling storm that had just shattered their lives. But from the shadows, a man stepped forward, a figure with piercing eyes, a familiar face he couldn't escape. The air thickened with uncertainty. Victor's heart raced. every instinct screaming at him as the mystery deepened. Could it be true? Was Sofia really in danger? "Who are you?" Victor breathed, looking into those cold eyes, fear replacing hope. And just like that, everything he thought he knew shattered. A new darkness unfurled over the fragile threads of their lives, leaving Victor scrambling for answers, clutching at the frayed edges of a truth too devastating to comprehend. Victor's heart raced as he stared into the familiar yet ominous eyes before him. Margaret's sudden collapse echoed through the courtroom, casting a shadow over everything he thought he knew. The room buzzed with whispers, confusion swirling around him like a cyclone. He could feel the walls closing in, every eye dissecting him like prey. Sofia crouched beside Margaret, panic etched on her face, small hands shaking the limp woman. "Mom, wait up!" she cried, desperation cutting through the air. Victor felt a knot tighten in his stomach. "Sofia, stay back!" he shouted, fighting to maintain control. The chaos around him was alive. Murmurs erupted, voices overlapping, and eyes clouded with fear and anger. "Someone call for help!" a voice rang out, but Victor barely heard them. His mind raced, filled with dread. He desperately sifted through the chaos, searching for answers, grappling with the sudden reality of Margaret's words. "She's not your daughter," he whispered, a question hanging in the air like a ghost. Just then, the tension in the room shifted. The figure lurking in the shadows stepped forward, and Victor's breath hitched. It was Caleb, the man he had long avoided and turned his back on, a once close friend turned rival. "Victor, you have to listen to her!" Caleb's voice was sharp, urgent. "Sofia's existence is more than just a mistake. She's part of something bigger, something dangerous." The words hit Victor like a physical blow. "What do you mean?" Panic laced his voice. But Caleb was already shaking his head, his expression grave. "You've lived in denial long enough. Sofia's real father. He's dangerous, yes, but he's also someone you know. He's been watching you both." The statement roared through Victor like a shot of ice. Everything twisted inside him. Memories from years ago colliding with the present. Faces, moments, decisions. Could it be true? Stop it! Stop lying! Sofia shot back, her voice cracking. The tears rolled down her cheeks, glistening like shards of glass. "You're lying!" Before Victor could respond or reach his daughter, Margaret stirred. Her eyes fluttered open, and the courtroom quieted. She strained to sit up, breathing heavily. "Sofia!" she gasped, wrapping her arms around the girl. "Listen to me! Your father is coming for you!" A frigid silence enveloped the space. That name, father, echoed through Victor's mind. For years, he had put it behind him, buried it deep. He struggled against the flood of memories, bitterness rising in his throat. "Who?" Victor snapped, desperation pooling in his gut. "Who is he?" But Margaret's eyes were wild, darting toward Caleb. "You're all in danger!" she rasped. "We have to get out of here!" Caleb stepped back, his expression unreadable. "It's too late for that," he said slowly, pain etched in his features. "He's already here." Suddenly, the courtroom doors flew open again, and in walked a figure that made Victor's heart stop. It was him, David, the man who had once been everything in Victor's life, now a spectre of betrayal and dread. His presence warped the very room around them, a darkness settling as he approached. "Hello, Victor," he said, smooth and chilling. The crowd gasped, and the weight of his gaze fell heavily on Victor. Victor's throat tightened. "What do you want?" he forced out, battling the uncertainty that clawed at him. "Everything," David replied, a sly smile creeping on his face. "And nothing is what it seems anymore. Not with that little girl." Sofia's face went pale as she shifted closer to her mother, eyes wide with confusion and fear. "What do you know about me?" she asked, her voice just above a whisper. Victor felt the world spin beneath him, the ground choking him with dread. This man had returned to their lives with secrets that threatened to rip them apart. Was Sofia really in danger? His heart raced, screaming for clarity, but every answer he sought slipped further from his grasp. Everything was collapsing, relationships fraying. David's dark return ushered in a nightmare Victor had buried deep, now clawing its way back with full force. "What are you really after?" Victor breathed, desperation lacing his tone. David only smiled, a predator scenting a feast. "Everything you've built, and perhaps the truth about who she is and what she can do." A shiver ran down Victor's spine as he glanced at Sofia. What had he unwittingly dragged her into? The secrets of the past were coming alive. Victor felt his heart racing as David's eyes bore into him, calculating, hungry. The weight of the courtroom pressed against him, but all he could think about was protecting Sofia. She looked so small, lost in a world that was spiraling out of control. "What do you want?" Victor whispered, his voice strained. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife, and the silence was suffocating. David leaned in, a sinister grin creeping onto his face. "I'm here for what's rightfully mine." He paused, allowing the words to hang in the air. "Your little girl holds the key to everything, Victor. You have no idea what she can do." Sofia clutched her mother tighter, eyes wide with fear. "What does that mean? Who are you?" Her voice trembled, echoing worry throughout the courtroom. "Don't you remember, Sofia?" David's tone was chillingly smooth. "Your mother kept it secret for a reason. You're not just any child." Victor felt his stomach drop. "Shut up! You don't know what you're talking about." He felt panic clawing at him, panic transforming into rage. Every word out of David's mouth was a noose tightening around his throat. Margaret stirred again, and Victor's eyes darted to her as she struggled to rise. "You need to listen, Sofia," she croaked, gasping for breath. "It's true. Your father is dangerous. But you—" Then, in a sudden, shocking moment, Margaret's eyes rolled back. As if someone flipped a switch, she went limp again. A collective gasp rippled through the courtroom. "Mum, no!" Sofia screamed, and Victor's heart sank deeper. He had to do something. He had to protect her, but the chaos around him made it impossible to think straight. David took a step forward, his shadow engulfing them both. You see, Victor, she needs to know what she really is. Sofia has gifts, powers she hasn't tapped into yet. That could change everything. Gifts? What was David even saying? Panic surged. Everything was spiraling. Was it possible? The courtroom was filled with stunned gasps, the whispers of disbelief buzzing like flies. Stop this! Victor shouted, unable to contain himself. You're lying! But in a moment of clarity, a horrifying realization dawned on him, crashing in waves. Margaret's erratic behavior, her wild warnings, it was real. The truth was clawing to break through, and he was running out of time. Suddenly, a loud crack echoed through the room. A window shattered, glass raining down, causing everyone to recoil in shock. The crowd erupted into panicked screams, chaos erupting as people scrambled to escape the unfolding mayhem. In the commotion, something caught Victor's eye. A glimmer, something small, flying towards Sofia. It was spiraling fast, a shard of glass, catching the light. No! He yelled, instinct kicking in. He dove forward just in time, arms outstretched, and everything slowed. The glass piece pierced through the air, but he reached her, wrapping his body around Sofia, protecting her with everything he had. The contact fueled an energy that surged through them both, a jolt of something indescribable. The moment felt electric, a connection deeper than life itself, binding them in a wild way he didn't understand. As the glass struck him instead, cries erupted around the room. Victor gasped, feeling the searing pain, but gritted his teeth, refusing to let anything happen to his daughter. Then came a blinding flash of light, so blinding it swallowed everything whole. For a moment, the courtroom, the chaos, the fear, it all vanished, as if swallowed by a dark void. And just like that, when the world clicked back into place, Victor found himself standing alone. The courtroom was empty. The stillness was deafening. No Sofia, no David, no Margaret, nothing but an unsettling ache in his chest. Where are they? He whispered into the void, despair washing over him. What just happened? Just as he thought he was alone in the dark, a voice, soft and echoing, broke the silence. You should have let me tell her the truth, Victor. He spun around, heart racing. Who was there? His pulse thudded in his ears, panic gripping him once more. Reality was slipping away, and everything he thought he knew was unraveling. What had this truth cost them? What were the real implications of this danger he'd fought so hard to shield Sofia from? The night had only just begun, and with shadows deepening around him, Victor knew one thing for sure. He had to find his daughter before it was too late. Victor's heart pounded in his chest. He strained to listen, but the voice was gone. The emptiness around him felt suffocating. He turned frantically, but the courtroom was still, as if holding its breath. "Where are you?" he murmured, feeling the chill creeping down his spine. The darkness encased him, wrapping him in uncertainty. He took a step forward, his foot crunching on shards of glass. Each sound echoed, amplifying his desperation. He needed to find Sofia. He had to protect her. Just then, a faint whisper reached his ears, slipping through the shadows like a breeze. "Victor! Help!" He whipped around, his heart racing. "Sofia?" But the whisper faded, leaving his name hanging in the air. He closed his eyes, reaching out for any sign, any feeling that might bring him closer to her. A flicker, something bright in the darkness. Then, bam! The ceiling overhead cracked like thunder. Dust rained down and Victor shielded his eyes. Panic surged as he stumbled back, waiting for calm to return. When he opened his eyes, he saw a new figure emerging from the smoke. A woman with a striking resemblance to Sofia. Her features were softer, yet there was an intensity behind her gaze that sent the hairs on the back of his neck rising. "Who are you?" he asked, breathless. But deep down, he felt a connection, something undeniable. "I'm Alex," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos. "I'm here for Sofia." "What do you mean?" Victor fought to make sense of everything. "Where is she? Is she okay?" "Listen to me, Victor. There's so much at stake. You have to trust me." Her eyes bore into his. "What you think you know about her, it's not the whole story." Victor's pulse quickened. "What story? What do you know?" She stepped closer, urgency woven into her words. "Sofia has powers, but they're more dangerous than you understand." "Your past, David? It's all connected. You need to stop him before..." Before she could finish, a figure loomed behind her, shrouded in the shadows. Victor's heart sank as he recognized him instantly. It was David. He emerged with a predatory smile, eyes gleaming. "Isn't it beautiful?" David cooed, gesturing toward the chaos. The beginnings of a new story unfolding. "Get away from her!" Victor shouted, adrenaline surging. He stepped between them. "What do you want from us?" David chuckled, a sound that sent chills through Victor. "I want what's mine, and that includes her." The room trembled as the walls shook, pieces falling from the ceiling. Victor glanced back at Alex. "You need to leave! Get out of here!" But she stood her ground, unwavering. "It's already too late, Victor." Suddenly, the air crackled, and everything went still for a moment. A blinding light erupted from the court's center, illuminating everything. Shadows danced, blurring the lines of reality. Victor shielded his eyes, fear gripping him tightly. When the light subsided, he stumbled back, stunned. Sofia stood there, but she screamed, eyes darting between him and David. "I don't know what's happening!" But while Victor's heart soared at the sight of her, a deep dread bubbled in his chest. Had David been right all along? What kind of danger were they truly in? David stepped forward, his presence darkening the air. "This is why I came back, Sofia. You're meant for something far greater than this life." "Don't listen to him!" Victor shouted, panic blooming. "You're safe with me!" But as Sofia clenched her fists, energy swirling around her, Victor realized a terrible truth. Sofia wasn't just a victim in this twisted game. She was a key, and David had plans far beyond anything Victor could anticipate. Victor, you have to understand. David's voice dripped with menace. She belongs with me! And just like that, it all shattered into fragments around him. Victor's world twisted, and chaos enveloped them once again. Everything he thought he knew, his hopes, his fears, they all clashed, hanging by a thread. As the room filled with an electric tension, Victor could only stare, mouth dry, questions racing through his mind. What would this revelation mean for them all? The truth loomed dark and unsettling. Would they fight for Sofia's future, or succumb to the shadows closing in around them? Victor's heart raced as David's eyes bore into him, calculating, hungry. The weight of the courtroom pressed against him, but all he could think about was protecting Sofia. She looked so small, lost in a world that was spiraling out of control. What do you want? Victor whispered, his voice strained. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife, and the silence was suffocating. David leaned in, a sinister grin creeping onto his face. I'm here for what's rightfully mine. He paused, allowing the words to hang in the air. Your little girl holds the key to everything, Victor. You have no idea what she can do. Sofia clutched her mother tighter, eyes wide with fear. What does that mean? Who are you? Her voice trembled, echoing worry throughout the courtroom. Don't you remember, Sofia? David's tone was chillingly smooth. Your mother kept it secret for a reason. You're not just any child. Victor felt his stomach drop. Shut up! You don't know what you're talking about! He felt panic clawing at him, panic transforming into rage. Every word out of David's mouth was a noose tightening around his throat. Margaret stirred again, and Victor's eyes darted to her as she struggled to rise. You need to listen, Sofia, she croaked, gasping for breath. It's true! Your father is dangerous! But you... Then, in a sudden, shocking moment, Margaret's eyes rolled back. As if someone flipped a switch, she went limp again. A collective gasp rippled through the courtroom. Mom, no! Sofia screamed, and Victor's heart sank deeper. He had to do something. He had to protect her. But the chaos around him made it impossible to think straight. David took a step forward, his shadow engulfing them both. You see, Victor, she needs to know what she really is. Sofia has gifts, powers she hasn't tapped into yet. That could change everything. Gifts? What was David even saying? Panic surged. Everything was spiraling. Was it possible? The courtroom was filled with stunned gasps, the whispers of disbelief buzzing like flies. Stop this! Victor shouted, unable to contain himself. You're lying! But in a moment of clarity, a horrifying realization dawned on him, crashing in waves. Margaret's erratic behavior, her wild warnings, it was real. The truth was clawing to break through, and he was running out of time. Suddenly, a loud crack echoed through the room. A window shattered, glass raining down, causing everyone to recoil in shock. The crowd erupted into panicked screams, chaos erupting as people scrambled to escape the unfolding mayhem. In the commotion, something caught Victor's eye. A glimmer, something small, flying towards Sofia. It was spiraling fast. A shard of glass, catching the light. "No!" he yelled, instinct kicking in. He dove forward just in time, arms outstretched, and everything slowed. The glass piece pierced through the air, but he reached her, wrapping his body around Sofia, protecting her with everything he had. The contact fueled an energy that surged through them both, a jolt of something indescribable. The moment felt electric, a connection deeper than life itself, binding them in a wild way he didn't understand. As the glass struck him instead, cries erupted around the room. Victor gasped, feeling the searing pain, but gritted his teeth, refusing to let anything happen to his daughter. Then came a blinding flash of light, so blinding it swallowed everything whole. For a moment, there was pure silence. The courtroom, the chaos, the fear, it all vanished as if swallowed by a dark void. And just like that, when the world clicked back into place, Victor found himself standing alone. The courtroom was empty. The stillness was deafening. No Sofia, no David, no Margaret, nothing but an ooh. He whispered into the void, despair washing over him. What just happened? Just as he thought he was alone in the dark, a voice, soft and echoing, broke the silence. "You should have let me tell her the truth, Victor." He spun around, heart racing. Who was there? His pulse thudded in his ears, panic gripping him once more. Reality was slipping away, and everything he thought he knew was unraveling. What had this truth cost them? What were the real implications of this danger he'd fought so hard to shield Sofia from? With a gasp, he turned to see Sofia standing there, a look of determination on her face. "Dad, I'm here!" But then, to his horror, she flicked her gaze to a shadow lurking behind him. "Get away!" she warned, and Victor felt a presence, dark and impossibly close. Quicker than he could register, a hand shot out, and the room spun. The lights flickered, and suddenly everything shattered again. But this time, it was not just the air around him. It was his very understanding of reality. David stepped forward, a triumphant gleam in his eye. "There's one more thing you don't know." Then, with a swift motion, he pulled down his shirt, revealing a tattoo on his arm. One Victor recognized instantly. It was the same symbol Margaret had worn. A twisting shape that spoke of ancient ties and curses. "Your bloodline runs deep, Victor, and so does ours," David declared. As the courtroom pulsed with a new energy, Victor's breath caught, everything shifting like sand beneath him. "What? No, it can't be." David's smile morphed into a sadistic grin. "Oh, it is! You're not just a father, you're a part of this legacy, Victor! And so is Sofia." Just then, Victor heard Sofia's voice again, distant yet piercing. "Dad, what is happening?" And in that moment, with everything crashing down around him, he knew they weren't just fighting for survival. They were tangled in a web of fate that would twist their lives in ways he had yet to comprehend. The stakes had soared, and with the truth clawing its way to the surface, one crushing question loomed. Was the danger truly over? Or was it just beginning? Victor's heart raced in his chest. The familiar chill ran down his spine as David's sinister smirk filled him with dread. "You're not just a father. You're a part of this legacy, Victor. And so is Sofia." Sofia's eyes widened. "What are you talking about?" Panic threaded through her voice. The room felt heavy, as if the air itself was clutching at Victor's throat. "Don't you see?" David cooed, stepping forward like a dark cloud descending. "This is bigger than you. Bigger than your little world. You were chosen, Victor. And so was she." Victor fought to keep his legs steady. "What do you mean, chosen?" He struggled to pull his thoughts together as dread clawed inside him. This was not the time. He focused on Sofia. "You're safe, sweetheart. Just hold on." Her voice trembled, confusion and fear swirling together. "What is happening?" Suddenly, Alex broke in, urgency filling her words. "Sofia, you need to fight this. They won't stop until they get what they want." At that moment, David's laughter sliced through the tension. Fight? How can she fight what she doesn't even comprehend? He took another step closer, his eyes glimmering with a mix of triumph and something darker. "Let me show you what you truly are." "Sofia!" Before Victor could react, David raised his hand and the air around them stilled. A sudden yet familiar energy pulsed through the room, wrapping around Sofia as if it were a living thing. Victor felt an electric crackle lace through the air, sending tremors down his spine. "No!" Victor shouted, lunging forward, but the energy seemed to push him back, pinning him against an invisible wall. "Sofia!" Sofia's gaze locked onto David, her small frame trembling. A moment later, her eyes flashed. Light erupted from her, bursting forth with an intensity that turned everything white. A wave of heat crashed over Victor, and he had to shield his eyes. "Don't let him control you," he cried out, fighting against the force holding him back. The intensity of the light faded, but not before Victor caught a glimpse of something monumental. A storm of power swirling around Sofia. Then silence fell. Everything went still and dark, like the night had swallowed the daylight whole. Victor blinked, and his surroundings morphed. The courtroom vanished. Instead, they were standing in an endless expanse of stars. Pure blackness stretching infinitely. Confusion clouded his mind. "What is happening?" he gasped. As the stars twinkled and pulsated, a figure emerged. An ethereal woman with flowing hair like ribbons of light. She stepped forward, and Victor's breath caught in his throat. It was Helen, but she looked different, radiant and powerful. "Victor," her voice rang out, soothing yet authoritative. "You must listen." "What?" he staggered, the reality of it slamming into him. "Helen, you're alive. You must understand the truth." She gestured to Sofia, who stood frozen in awe. "There's more to our story. More than you know." Confusion morphed into panic. "What story? What are you hiding?" The woman's presence didn't waver. "This is not just about you. The bloodline, the powers, they stem from a place of ancient magic that you are weaving into your lives without realizing." Victor shook his head, thoughts scattered and reeling. "Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't I know? It was never the right time until now." But then, just as Victor began to process a revelation, a chilling laugh echoed around them. David's voice returned, slithering through the darkness. "You think you can escape. It's not just your blood that matters. It's what lies beneath." With that, an overwhelming force crashed against them, leaving Victor gasping. A chilling truth unfolded, like a dark flower blooming. Everything he believed was a lie, a mere shadow of what was really at stake. Sofia blinked at her mother, a flicker of recognition dawning. Mom? And then the ground cracked, a fissure opening beneath them, forcing Victor back. No! He reached for Sofia, instinct screaming at him. But as he stumbled, the energy pulsed again, revealing a dark shape rising from the depths. A monster, born from both past and future. Unnatural, fearsome, the embodiment of a truth buried too deep. What have you done? Victor shouted, despair hollowing his chest. What is this? The monster loomed closer, and with one roar, it boomed through the void, shaking the very fabric of their reality. Victor wanted to scream, to protect Sofia, and to understand, to know if there was life beyond this moment, or if it was all just a chilling illusion. As David smiled like a wolf among sheep, Victor felt the chilling truth in his bones. The beginning of a nightmare was unfolding, and they were trapped in its heart. Victor stared, breath catching in his throat, as the monstrous figure loomed larger. It was like all his nightmares combined into one. Cold dread gripped him, and he instinctively stepped in front of Sofia, ready to shield her from whatever darkness David had conjured. But then something else happened. The ground beneath them began to tremble and shake. It felt like the world was splitting apart. Sofia's eyes widened with fear, her small hands trembling as she clutched her mother tightly. "Dad, what's happening?" her voice cracked. Victor looked around. "Hold on! Just hold on!" But he felt helpless. A weight pressing down on his chest. David took a step back, a rare flicker of anxiety crossing his face. "No! This can't happen!" Panic laced his words, a strange shift in the air. The enormous shadow writhed and twisted like smoke, and suddenly a blinding flash erupted. Victor shielded his eyes, heart racing. When he dared to look again, everything changed. The monster was gone. In its place stood a swirl of colours, shimmering like oil on water. The air shifted, electric with an unfamiliar energy. And at the centre, Sofia glowed, radiant and powerful. Victor's breath caught. It was like staring into the sun. "Sofia!" he yelled. "What are you doing?" But Sofia's eyes were unfocused, as if she was seeing another world. "I can feel it, Dad. It's inside me." Her voice resonated with a strength he had never heard before. But there was fear mingled within it. David's face morphed from panic to realization. Silence fell. Victor blinked, his surroundings morphing again. They were not in the courtroom anymore. Instead, they stood in a vast field, green and golden under an endless sky. Birds sang overhead, and the scent of flowers filled the air. "What just happened?" he breathed, looking around in disbelief. Sofia stood beside him, looking more like a goddess than his daughter. But there was something else, an expression on her face that chilled him. A weight was pressing down on her, like she was carrying the world's burden all alone. "Dad, it wasn't supposed to be like this," she whispered, voice quivering. "What do you mean?" But just then they heard it. A laugh, a dark mocking cackle slicing through the tranquility. It was David again. "This is a lovely place, isn't it? Peaceful. But don't get too comfortable. You've unleashed something you can't control." Victor turned, fury flooding through him. "What did you do to us?" David took a step forward, his smile cruel. "I've turned your precious girl into something much more. Something destined to lead or destroy." The words hung heavy in the air. David's meaning was clear, and Victor felt the ground beneath him shift again, the calm shattering like glass. But it wasn't what David said that shocked Victor most. It was what he had revealed. Sofia wasn't just his daughter. She was a beacon of power, born from a legacy he had tried to escape. An ancient truth he had feared, now laid bare. "No! This can't be true!" Victor shouted, grasping at his heart, trying to make sense of the fragments. But as he looked at Sofia, her posture stiff, a new darkness clouded her eyes, and Victor's insides twisted with dread. What had he unleashed? What did this mean for their world? "I don't want this!" Sofia's voice cracked, raw and filled with pain. And in that moment, Victor felt the despair wash over him. Everything was changing. Bonds would break, hearts would shatter, and shadows would rise. Who were they now? What lay ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear. The danger had only begun. Victor stared, breath catching in his throat, as the monstrous figure loomed larger. It felt like his worst nightmares were melding into reality. Cold dread gripped him, and he instinctively stepped in front of Sofia, ready to protect her from whatever darkness David had conjured. But then, unexpectedly, the ground trembled beneath their feet. The world shifted as an intense wave of energy surged forward, and Victor felt his heart race. What's happening? Sofia looked around, panic in her eyes, her small hands trembling as she clutched her mother tightly. But then, without warning, the vast darkness erupted in a blinding flash of light. Victor squeezed his eyes shut, covering his face, feeling the heat wash over them. "Dad!" Sofia cried. "What is this?" Victor opened his eyes just in time to witness something surreal. The monstrous figure transformed, its outline rippling and distorting, unraveling into golden threads of light that filled the air. The darkness melted away, revealing a stunning, bright landscape filled with vibrant colours, flowers, and a snur. In the centre of the calm stood Sofia, glowing like a star. Her eyes shone with power, but also confusion. "I can feel it. It's inside me," she whispered, awed yet terrified. That's not possible," Victor stammered, stepping closer to her, eyes wide. Every instinct screamed at him to pull her back, to shield her from whatever was unfolding. "You don't understand what this means." David's demeanor shifted from smug confidence to nervous energy. "No, this can't be happening!" he shouted, eyes darting around like a cornered animal. "I need to fix this!" And then the landscape shifted again. A rift appeared in the air nearby, dark and swirling with a chaotic energy. From it emerged a figure, an old woman with wild flowing hair and eyes that seemed to see right through Victor's soul. A sharp gasp tore from David's lips. Mother? He whispered, trembling. Victor's heart pounded as he recognized an ancient power resonating in the woman's presence. She flicked her gaze towards Sofia, then back at David. You are a fool to think you can control what is beyond you. Her voice was thunderous, echoing through the bright field. Sofia's expression turned, shifting from fear to newfound determination. What do you want from us? She shouted, grounding her power. The old woman raised a hand, and the rift pulsed ominously. You hold the key to our future, child, she declared, and with a flick of her wrist, a gust of wind howled, swirling around them like a tempest. Victor watched in horror as the rift began to expand, shadows pouring from it. No, not you, David shrieked. Fear etched across his face. Mom, Sofia cried, instinctively stepping closer to Victor. But the shadowy essence surged forward, swirling like a living beast. It struck David, engulfing him. You cannot escape your fate, son, the old woman bellowed. Suddenly, a horrifying transformation took place. David writhed as the shadows seeped into him, and a scream shattered the air, echoing and twisting into a final, gut-wrenching sound. The rift closed around him, and David's eyes locked with Sofia's before he vanished into nothingness. Silence fell, heavy as lead. Victor turned to Sofia, panting, confusion and fear swirling in the air. What just happened? But before she could answer, the radiant light flickered, and Victor felt an icy grip on his heart. Where's David? What was that about fate? The old woman turned to them, her face now shadowed and inscrutable. It is his fate to join the shadows. But yours remains unwritten, she said cryptically. The power you yield can bring light or darkness, child. Choose wisely. With that, everything spiraled, and the world around them faded into darkness once more. Victor grasped Sofia's hand tightly, panic flooding through him. What does she mean? What power? And just as the last glimmer of light vanished, a deafening silence surrounded them. In utter darkness, realization hit harder than any blow. Had they truly escaped? Or had they just stepped deeper into a trap? The stakes had shifted dramatically. Every promise made, every secret kept, hung in a precarious balance. They were not just fighting for survival anymore. They were fighting for their very nature, and the choices looming ahead threatened to unravel everything they thought they knew. Victor found himself standing in the emptiness, heart racing, the cold sweat pooling at his brow. The battlefield he had just endured flickered in his mind like a broken film reel. The monstrous figure, the brilliant light, the revelation of Sofia's powers. But now there was silence. No shadows, no looming threats, just the weight of uncertainty hanging heavy in the air. Where are we? Sofia asked, her voice trembling slightly, eyes scanning the void around them. Even she, usually so brave, felt vulnerable in this unfamiliar landscape. I don't know, Victor admitted, glancing around, searching for any sign of David or the old woman. But we have to find a way back. But back to what? Sofia whispered, a hint of fear creeping into her tone. What if this is all that's left? Victor felt a lump form in his throat. He had fought so hard to protect her, to keep her from the truth. But the truth was here, draped in shadows and light, whispering promises and threats. He stepped closer to Sofia, grounding himself. No matter what, we'll figure this out together. I won't let anything happen to you. As if summoned by their resolve, the ground beneath them began to shimmer, swirling with colours, pulling away the darkness. "Dad!" Sofia exclaimed, feeling the energy shift around her. "I think it's reacting." Victor squinted as a warm light encased them, illuminating a path ahead. "What if it wants to take us somewhere?" "Then let's go!" Sofia said, a spark igniting in her eyes. They took a step forward as the light enveloped them, and in an instant everything exploded in a whirl of sensations. Flashes of memories, voices shouting, futures intertwining. When the whirlwind subsided, they found themselves back in the courtroom, now filled with sunlight, streaming through the broken windows. The shadows that had once haunted them were gone. The air felt lighter, almost serene. "Is it over?" Sofia breathed, turning to Victor, hope flickering in her voice. As they scanned the room, they noticed Margaret waking from her unconsciousness, her face pale but peaceful. "Sofia," she murmured, eyes blinking against the light. "Is everyone okay?" "I think we are," Sofia replied, rushing into her mother's arms, a wave of relief washing over her. Victor couldn't help but smile, even amid the chaos. "You did it, Sofia! You channeled that energy somehow!" Sofia nodded, still wrapped tightly around her mother, her expression a mix of joy and lingering fear. "But what about David?" Margaret swallowed hard, looking up. "He and that monster are gone," she said, trembling. "But this isn't the end. The danger may be gone for now, but there's still so much more we're going to discover." Victor took a moment, pulling himself together. The shadows of the past still loomed, but so did boundless possibilities. "It's our choice now, how we move forward." Sofia looked up, ready to meet whatever challenges lay ahead, her small hand clasping Victor's. "Together, right?" He squeezed her hand, a smile tugging at his lips. "Always." As the sun shone brighter through the courtroom, hope blossomed between them, opening new paths. Just then, Victor heard whispers stirring in the back of his mind, echoes of a legacy, forged from light and dark. What had they really unleashed? Victor glanced up, just in time to see the last remnants of darkness flicker beyond the remnants of the shattered courtroom. With every heartbeat, they felt the thrill of both dread and possibility. What came